I chose to not deal with it because I didn't have to. And you're not used to that. You didn't like that.
But Chrissy, you have to, because that's how family actually gets.
Listen to me. I don't have to. He
Chrissy,
has to. That's your son.
No,
he has to.
You have to remember. Once you and him get married, and really, as far as I'm concerned, y'all are married.
As long as I was standing in that house and he was coming in 6 and 7 in the morning, talking about this record, that record, and they had a record out in years. What are you working on?
Chrissy!
Who's talking to you like that?
I'm talking to you.
Stop pointing at me,
I'm
Chrissy,
talking,
for
that's
real.
who I was talking to. I'm talking to you. Because
Right.
guess what? We lived in the same house. How have I been selfish and I had done nothing but give since the moment I
don't give a about the giving.
So what makes
how
me
you
selfish?
A furious debate broke out in the room as Jim Jones's and Chrissy Lampkin's eyes met, and their voices grew louder. The relatives and friends were standing around, uncertainly observing one another, unsure of how to step in. Jim was losing his temper easily, and Chrissy was not going to back down. "Do you really believe you can speak that way to me?" Chrissy screamed. "You've crossed a line," her voice trembling with anger and disbelief. The James Jim grew so upset that you were unable to advise me on how to handle things. He gave a bark, his cheekbones flushed with emotion. He took a step closer, his eyes narrowing, and then, in a sudden and shocking move, he gave Chrissy a face slap. Everyone in the room stood in stunned stillness as the slap echoed through the space. "You've lost your mind," Chrissy said as she staggered back, pushing her fingers automatically against her cheek as her confusion transformed into a raging rage. Her tone had now shifted to one of anger and disbelief, and the room's mood had drastically changed as the whole group tried to understand what had just happened. Jim's kid, who had been observing silently, stepped forward and declared, "I'm done, Dad. She can't be treated that way." His words were forceful. "Stay out of this," Jim yelled, but his son's determination was clear. "I won't, sorry. It is not possible to simply strike her and hope for the best. You are superior to this, Dad." The room was a hush of anxiety as everyone watched the drama unfold. Jim uttered the words, "You believe you can manage my life? In this place, I set the rules. You are seriously misguided. It was preferable to standing in utter stillness. You're not handling problems the way you're driving people away." His son shot out, shaking his head contemptuously. "The slap still makes me shudder," and Chrissy drew closer, and her voice grew steadier. "Now you should listen to him. It's poisonous, Jim, and I won't tolerate it." It was evident that her son's encouragement had reinforced her harsh tone. The strong tension, the child of Jim pointed to the door like a knife. "It may be time for you to go if you think this is okay. This man isn't right for you." His cheeks turned a darker shade of red as a mixture of embarrassment and anger boiled up inside him. "I respect his comments, since they are insightful and resonating." His son snarled, "You think you can throw me out of my house?" But he stood firm. "I can, of course. You are not welcome here, though, and you ought to get help if this is how you treat the people you care about. You all have your things in order." The tension in the atmosphere was obvious. Jim struggled with the encounter while everyone held their breath. It appeared that his son's words struck a chord, and for a while, Jim vacillated between anger and a flash of insight. In a tight, low voice, Jim added, "If that's how it's going to be, I'll leave with that." And he slammed the front door behind him. Once Jim was gone, the mood shifted, and Chrissy and his kid grinned at each other. "Is it pleasant to wash over them?" His son looked at Chrissy with concern, and she nodded, though her emotions were still raw. "I can't believe that he went beyond that line. It is about everything that preceded the slap, not simply the slap itself." "We must maintain our position," his son remarked, shaking his head. This isn't just about today. It's about what we allow in our lives going forward. As the weight of the situation weighed heavily on them both, they took deep breaths. The fight that served as a reminder. Sitting there in the silent room, it dawned on them that Jim had been losing ground for a while. Even though I've always loved him, I can't stand this any longer. Chrissy's voice was quiet yet forceful. Her kid said, "I won't allow him to treat me or anyone else like this any longer. This must be handled as a family. If he is open to change, perhaps there is hope. If not, we must defend ourselves." There was a mixture of hope and fear, and they both understood that confronting Jim about his behavior would be challenging but crucial. Hours passed, though, and the sun began to set, bringing a welcome warmth to the space. "Are you expecting him to come back?" Chrissy's and her son's bond grew stronger as the evening wore on. "I don't know," said Chrissy, a little worried, but her son seriously answered, "But if he does, we have to be ready. We can't just ignore this. We need to have an open discussion now." In a clean, contemporary studio, where there was a soft buzz of expectation, Chrissy and her son were prepared to enter the door for change side by side. On the other side of Chrissy is Jim Jones. They had been able to establish a safe place for each other by facing the wave of toxicity together. Since they were all committed to creating a healthy environment, they were ready to face the difficult path ahead together. The photographer. For years, I believed that I had everything sorted out, including love, success, and a future with Chrissy. However, I just discovered something that broke my trust in my wife totally. He leans forward, preparing to unveil a shocking chapter of his life, and his face shows his feelings. Allow me to get straight to the point. Following his heist of my $7 million, Chrissy Lampkin pauses to process the words, then fixes his gaze on the camera and challenges. Anytime I challenge his truth, he listens to me. It's no small sum. I've worked hard every day since the beginning to establish my career and earn $7 million. I was never prepared for the betrayal of knowing that the person I trusted the most was plotting to hurt me. Jim sways and shakes his head, not believing that such insignificant transactions were the first. Lack of funds and accounts. I thought it might have been because of bad management or bad investments, but I had to. I understand the situation, and what I discovered resembled a scene from a film. His eyes hardened with a mix of wrath and grief, and I discovered transactions and hidden accounts that took me to places I never consented to. I was shocked to learn that Chrissy had been handling my money as if it were her own piggy bank. I believed that we were a team because we had built our lives together. As I got closer to her, Jim moved forward again, his voice getting louder, as if I were talking. He inhales deeply. The pain is still intense, but to a stranger, the denial and the justifications seem unreal. My ride-or-die partner was looking at me as if it were all in my head, but I had the documentation, the proof, and the bank records, so everything was fine. Even though love is supposed to be about honesty and fidelity, she chose to be unfaithful, which is the thing that hurts the most, because I would have given her all I had to begin a future with her. The foundation of what we were destined to have and respect is at stake here, not simply financial gain. The people closest to you can often be the most painful, as I have discovered the hard way. My anger flared as Jim combed through his hair, and I felt stupid for having faith in her. I'm determined to pick up the pieces and focus on my music and brand, even though it will take time. His gaze softens as he mulls about the future. Tell me about myself. I've come too far to let one betrayal define my future. So I'm rebuilding my strength one step at a time with a determined stare. For whatever comes next, Jim prepares. I hope that everybody who thinks they know their partner will be reminded of this. You may never be certain what might be lurking in the shadows, so follow your instincts and stay vigilant. The atmosphere in the room as he departs is one of sadness and fortitude, demonstrating somebody who is committed to regaining his. Narrating and developing a novel path forward, on Friday, September 20th, Jim Jones and his long-term girlfriend are said to have broken up due to an enigmatic post Chrissy Lampkin made on her Instagram story. "I'm sure you'll never find someone like me," Chrissy wrote. "I'll replace you by tomorrow, but good luck trying." Although the reason behind the post is unknown, the couple's relationship has a lengthy and tumultuous past. They first met nearly 20 years ago following an encounter at a Love and Hip Hop New York in Harlem's cast included Chrissy and Jim in 2004. Jim was clearly afraid to marry Chrissy, although they appeared to have a strong attachment to one another. In a subsequent season, though, she asked the We Fly High artist to marry her, and he said yes when she offered. The pair never were married. On December 13, 2019, Jim Jones and Chrissy Lampkin were backstage at the Barclays Center.